just from that's just from the Assistant Commissioner Cornelius, Mr. Cornelius. So
Okay.
that's for you to read. It's pretty much just strongly advising you guys to not come into the city tomorrow in breach of the trail directions and in breach of coming into the 5K radius. That's all it is.
Why us? As in, who's us? You're
I'm just saying,
obviously...
so this is from our Assistant Commissioner. I don't know anything more about it. It's for you to read. We're just here to deliver it. That's all I can say. So everything that's happening tomorrow or that you want to come into the city tomorrow, it's just strongly advised that you don't do it, that you don't participate, and that you're not there under otherwise you'll be in breach of everything. So that's all it is. We're going to go because we've delivered that, and that's pretty much all we need to do.
Okay.
You're an independent journalist. We've watched your work throughout the lockdown. You've never organised anything. Tell us what happened.
No, so the police rocked up at my house yesterday. So somehow they got my address. I wasn't home, I was walking the dog. And my wife went down and they handed her a letter from Luke Cornelius, pretty much to say that I shouldn't be here today because I'm a protest organiser or, causing trouble, whatever it is. But, I've done a lot of work throughout this year, very hard work actually, to establish that I'm actually a credible independent journalist. Now, I don't know what kind of research the police have done, or they're just sending out random letters to everyone. But I feel like it's very targeted because I've never organised anything. And it's very clear that they've watched my work previously as well, because some of them have commented on it previously, in person I'm saying. So they know who I am. So to actually send that letter to ensure that I don't come today to cover what's happening today is just over the top. And it's frankly something that I don't expect to see in this country. It's just shameful, really, to have the police rock up at night to stop someone who's a journalist or a part of the press, to stop them from doing their work the next day.
When we first walked in the park today, they stopped me and they said, you're not an accredited journalist, as in Victoria Police hasn't deemed you a journalist, and they tried to arrest me. There was a whole interaction. They called legal, and then they realised they lost the argument and they wouldn't apologise. The point is that Victoria Police are certainly picking a side, saying, if you are critical of our police overreach, our behaviour, our police brutality throughout the previous lockdowns, and you're coming here to expose what we plan to do today, we're going to shut you down.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what's happening. There's no other way to explain why they would come and why they would ask for details like that, And there is no such thing as accreditation from the Victoria Police for me or you to come to a public space and to cover something that's happening in our community. As independent journalists, as people who are working within the community and doing the work that we do, that people watch and people listen to us, and they're expecting us to do this kind of work as well, we have every right to be here to capture what they're doing in public. Now, if they're not doing anything wrong, there's nothing for the police to worry about. So they should not actually care at all that the media is there. They should be happy that we're here to catch these interactions, because they're abiding by the laws and they're treating citizens of these states according to the law. But obviously, if they're trying to stop the press from coming, if they're trying to stop you from coming to cover what they're doing, they know that there's a problem, and they know that the community is working up to those issues as well, and they don't want that to be seen. I wasn't intimidated, but they came to my family home, and I have immigrant parents, and they found out about it, and they're telling me in the morning, like, oh, don't go, you know how the police is. My dad's telling me, oh, I used to be involved in political activities back home, and it wasn't worth it because the police would treat you in a certain way. And I'm telling my dad, I'm in Australia, like, it's okay, I'm safe. As a journalist in this country, I should be allowed to step out and do this work without my parents worrying about me. It's ridiculous that it's come to this level. So yeah, I think it's just really shameful, and it's really did upset me. Not at a personal level, upset me, but as a whole society, I think it should upset all of us as well.
I'll tell you what, there's a reason why we know they obviously came to intimidate you. There's a reason why they came to your house and not my house last night, because they've done it before, they've tried it before, and then I've smashed them in court, and that fight's ongoing. But they didn't dare come with that letter last night to me. But I think you did the right thing, because by not backing down and by doubling down and standing up for your rights as an independent journalist to cover this, even though you're not spreading the narrative they want you to spread, I think you're going to win.
Yeah, look, for me, I think it's very important that I did come and that I didn't back down, because that's the whole reason I'm doing this. So if I just stayed home because they came over and sent a letter, I should just stop doing this kind of work. So it's very important that you shouldn't back down. If you are, just, and if you are being rightful in what you're doing, you should go ahead and do those things. Before I came in the morning, I spoke to my lawyer. I did all those things, and I came prepared, because I'm not going to back down and be intimidated by the government or Victoria Police when I need to cover what's happening in my city. Because I'm a citizen of this city, I contribute to this town. I'm a business owner as well, and I have every right to do what I'm doing.
Good on you, mate. And if you ever need help, Rebel News will always back independent journalists that tell the other side of the story like yourself. Thank you, Roxanne. Thanks for everything you've done for the last year and a half. And thank you for not backing down.
Cheers, Avi. Thank you. Likewise.
Not only is Roxanne an absolute gentleman,
Makes me sick. That was like the in a relationship, it's like the honeymoon period before like the couple starts bickering later on. Now it just like obviously can't just stop bagging each other up. But what about me being a gentleman? Just very cordial, just the respectful manner in which we spoke to each other. You wouldn't think that's where we came from to this point, Avi.
it's horrible to watch 5 years ago. And shout out to Abigail King. She's the one who actually sent it to me today. And I think, hold on, let me just read the way she said
Welcome
it.
everyone, by the way, to the Opposition podcast.
Welcome to the Opposition
all doing well.
podcast. Make sure while we just have our little reminiscence here about how our relationship first blossomed, make sure to smash the like button, help that algorithm, give it a share. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe and hit the notification bell on the channel. So Abby sent me a message today with this on X with a link to it. And she said, for tonight, your first interview with Roxanne instead of terrible waiting music, which she's referring to obviously your pick the other day,
Perhaps.
which was actually quite horrible. And I watched it, so I wrote back, no, I didn't watch it first. I wrote, "Oh my God, yes." And she says, "It's sweet. You're being you're being all professional and nice." You're being professional and nice with him. I said, and then I watched it. I go, "Oh, that makes me sick."
Yeah.
And then she told me to play nice. Welcome to the stream, everybody, and Abigail, shout out for that one. It was fun to watch. When I watch back to the reports from the ground at that period of time, it puts me in a weird headspace because I remember that. I remember that like it was yesterday, and the feeling in my head. And that specific day was the day that the cops tried to tell me I have to wear a mask, and I had that massive feud with them, and that went totally viral. I think it was probably 10 minutes before I just spoke to you. I still had adrenaline running through my body, and I'm like, yeah, there's... Another thing I noticed, by the way, from that footage is you used to be blacker. Have you been working on that? Is that something you've been working on?
It's just I've taken a leaf out of Syrian girls' books and I've just put on filters to make myself appear lighter skinned.
You're so mean. You're so mean. Did you see that? How she was in
That was a funny interaction.
the New South Wales streamer's stream, and he's talking to that lunatic, and then at the end of it, he's about to walk away. She goes, "Oh, can you do me a favor?" Like a massive, important favor. And he's like, yeah, what? Because he was all in serious mode trying to get people to hold his little flag.
Yeah. No, look, I remember back then, Avi, I turned dark. I just realized why. Because I was spending a lot more time outdoors. And for Sri Lankans, the moment you step outside and start spending time outside, you just get darker because of the sun. So now that I'm spending a lot more time indoors, working in offices and things like this, I do get lighter. Because if my skin
Guys,
is
are
actually
you
lighter
buying this
It's actually
nonsense
lighter on the
coming
inside.
out of Roxanne at the moment? Is anyone actually buying this? Let us know in the comments if you're buying Roxanne's going white because he's not going outside story. But yeah, look, we'll get the filter because this is live. You have to put the filter that was so funny. Anyways, guys, welcome to the stream. As you all know, the comments that you're seeing below us are from our YouTube channel, so both mine and Roxanne's. Make sure you go and subscribe to both of those channels, hit the notification bell on both, and get involved in the live chat there, and it'll feature on the screen. And obviously, as usual, any of the super chats, we will read them through the night. We'll start now with Varan.
Yeah, regular. Thanks, mate. He says, Shalom, Rukshan and Avi. Hello, Christians, Hindus, Jews, black Nazis, leftists, libertarians, and those who show humility. What about the uni protesters? I think we're going to get to that, aren't we? That's
well, I actually got a quick clip that we'll play in 2 seconds. That'll be, I guess, the segue into it. But before that, we'll just because Varan has another quick comment. Rukshan and Avi, Melbourne finest streamer. Rukshan and Avi. No, it was actually Rukshan that was the original streamer, and it's so funny because that New South Wales streamer was just copying you at the time, but he was never as good as you. He absolutely did. Stop being humble. Stop. Stop being humble. Stop.
I'm showing humility here. I am not the originator of live streaming.
No, at the COVID protest. No. Guys, let us know in the comments. I don't like blowing smoke up Rukshan's ass, but if it's between blowing smoke up Rukshan's ass and knocking down the New South Wales streamer, I'll go with the smoke. No, but you were the first COVID streamer. That's why you were so big, and everybody like a million.
We've got to be careful. We've got to be careful, Avi. You know that New South Wales finest streamer right now is transcribing all of this with his sophisticated AI software, and I'm sure we'll make it into one of those clips. If you're watching, mate, Chris, hope you're doing well. Enjoy.
Don't use his name. He gets so upset that you don't use his name. So I refuse to use his name.
I like Chris. I like him. I just I like him.
I can't stand him. He's such an
relationship for sure.
He's an annoying. What does he call me now? He calls me
thug.
No. He called me a thug one time, but no, there was another word that I keep noticing in tweets that he's got. And it's wild because he's got zero self-awareness because he's literally describing himself. Anyways, let's go. There's a couple quick super chats and then we'll get into that story that Varan segued us into.
Rukshan and Avi, love at first sight. I mean, that is a blossoming. That is that moment captured, Avi. I think we didn't know at the time that we would be soulmates, but it was actually captured on film. Like, not many people have that in their relationship.
No.
It was actually captured on camera for us.
We were laughing about it. We've laughed about it a lot because even my wife used to watch the live streams at the protest just to see that I'm all right.
Yeah.
And then she just got into watching your stuff as opposed to mine. She was like, she goes, I would go, have you? I was like, are you going to watch my report on the protest today? She goes, why would I do that? I watched the whole thing yesterday with Rukshan.
That's when your dislike of Sri Lankan started. It was that moment, moment that you realized
Here's
Sri
Abby.
Lankans are great. Abby, don't complain, Rukshan. I have to pay for my tan in a bottle. I'm surprised, Abby, you have money left over to pay for tans after all the super chats you do. So, thank you, Abby.
Don't remind her, Rukshan. Do not remind her. Gosh, this is the problem with Rukshan. He doesn't think about the long-term game here. You can't remind people that it's costing them real life money to super chat like that. I saw somebody complaining about how I make too many jokes about it and I'm insensitive. I'm not. I appreciate everybody that's on our stream. There's 1,344 of you now. Welcome tonight. I appreciate each and every one of you. But yes, I have a special place in my heart for those who actually contribute to us financially. So Rukshan can afford his white spray. That's what he uses.
White spray.
You pay for black spray. He's using Michael Jackson cream.
Shout out to Chris Ovaries from Varan. That's the name, Chris Ovaries.
You guys are so mean. You need to stop. All right, we're going to go into the first thing that keep the super chats going, but I'll start there because Varan brought it up and it was just breaking. So here we go. I had to tie it to... So basically today in Melbourne, a man was punched in the face for holding an Australian flag by pro-Palestinian... I put it in that because they're never actually... It's not really the issue to these student activists. The issue is more they hate Australia, and you'll see it in this. I had to add the John Ruddick knew. That's why he and his streamer mate hid their little tiny flag. But have a watch it. Have a watch. This is serious.
The atmosphere turning volatile when an outcast strode into the pro-Palestine crowd, hoisting an Australian flag. As he paraded it through the circle, the mood shifted. Chants turning to shouts as public order response officers moved in and pulled him from the chaos.
Free Gaza!
I mean, shouldn't be surprised. I mean, as soon as I kind of hear pro-Palestine, I now associate it, just because of the organizers. Again, I don't want to disparage everyone that's there, but because the organizers of these protests, I associate pro-Palestine being anti-Australian, because they do not like Australia and they hate the Australian flag. And you're seeing it there. A bloke walked in with the Australian flag. It shouldn't be controversial. They're not at war with Australia. But what does someone there do? Just sucker punch the guy from the side. That's how much the Australian flag incenses this group of activists and this pro-Palestinian movement. And it's disgraceful to see, apart from the fact that, of course, today, another day, a working day in Melbourne, you had this group made up of predominantly students, but with this core radicalized group of pro-Palestinian activists block the city as well by just sitting down in the middle of a massive intersection near Flinders Street Station. So it continues. And, they had the big march last week in Sydney. Nothing really changed as a result of that. And it goes on. And this is the new normal. And as, Nash Mashni, I think pretty much on the radio, said that this is the new normal and they'll continue doing this to the city of Melbourne and many cities around Australia.
And he called the Australian flag just a piece of silk. And you know what's interesting in that particular report? Like I didn't, because I watched the whole thing. I was actually prepping dinner not prepping dinner, actually, I'm not going to lie. I was putting away the dishes from the dishwasher and it was playing and I saw it and the Channel 9 reporter called it a peaceful protest. I'm like, you're calling it a peaceful protest and then you show us a dude getting punched in the face for holding the Australian flag in Melbourne.
Yep.
How is that peaceful? So that's my problem with the mainstream media at the moment. They're lying. Because they know they're obviously feeding into the audience, and the audience, they
audience
think
captured. Yeah.
That they think that the audience supports this. But I think they're wrong. I think most Australians are sick of this. And most Australians see this for what it is. That's why so many people are angry. Like I keep sharing clips, and I'm going to keep doing it for the next couple of days until I'm run out of clips. But from the debate, because most people are not going to watch that full debate. And I know, people have different reactions to the debate style or whether, whatever. I don't really care. But the point is that there's so many little parts, like about the Australian flag, about not knowing the term. But the main ones that I think that really resonate with Australians was the Australian flag, and there was another one yesterday that I put up that's really resonated with Aussies that had to do with the
different conflicts.
Oh yeah, not that's right, not rallying for different and so you're talking about for a few minutes from that long debate, and people go, oh my god, how come these people are taking over the Sydney Harbour Bridge for this conflict that has killed barely anything compared to other people? How come there are no Australian flags? Yeah, you have that little streamer walking around with a little flag. And the funny thing is, even him with his little flag got attacked at the end but if you watched the end of his stream, he actually got attacked for that flag. So it is, it's no surprise. And if Aussies don't stand up for Australia, then they're going to take over. And they are taking over. Yeah, look, they see they can get away with it. And the media's helping them.
I think two things can be right at the same time. So I think, many Australians would be sympathetic to the suffering of civilians, whether it be in Gaza or any other conflict around the world. And by and large, Australians, Westerners are kind-hearted people.
Yep.
They have Christian, moral, ethical values that they see suffering, death as something that shouldn't be happening. Because in our societies, we're so lucky that we don't have to live such an existence where we have that threat of death over us all the time. So we understand the how sacred life is and how we need to protect that. So that can be true. I think Australians don't want to see the suffering. But at the same time, I don't believe that Australians support this anti-Australian part of this movement, where it's very in your face. They can't stand the Australian flag. The guy that sucker punched him was one of these kind of purple haired, blue haired freaks from that activist class that we have. These no good Centrelink welfare activists that we have running around that waste everyone's time with these protests that they do. And I don't think people support that whatsoever.
An
Even if they're
Australian
sympathetic
flag
to what's
has-
going on, even if they're sympathetic to what's happening in Gaza right now, I don't think they support these type of scenes of Australians in one of their cities in Australia from a movement that wants the support of the Australian public, then being hated on and hit in the face because they are carrying the national flag. And like you mentioned before, National Imagining, one of the lead organisers here in Melbourne and around Australia for the pro-Palestine movement, he called the Australian flag just a piece of silk in response to whether he would condemn the burning of the flag or not during last Sunday in Melbourne. He said he wouldn't condemn it. And you're seeing again just how much hate they have for Australia. We have to come to terms with the fact that even though we might be humanitarian and we might want to see people's lives saved and we want to support that side of things, there is no way that we as a society in Australia should be supporting this anti-Australian movement.
Totally. Let's read some of these super chats before we go on. Baz has paid the
Bazia. Hey mate. Hello
G'day,
lads.
Baz.
Hey mate.
Thank you for your support as usual. Now, please, Roxanne, don't remind him so that he remembers. Jeez.
Catherine, thanks for the super chat. If an Aussie flag does that to them, they can POQ.
Piss off. Q. What would the Q stand? Piss off.
I don't know. Piss off. POQ. Maybe someone can let us know in another super chat what POQ is.
Catherine's going to have to do another super chat.
Thanks, Catherine. Appreciate your contributions. Alirez Romania says it's pro-terrorism, it's pro-Hamas, woke left. Look, I think when we see those big protests where there's almost 100,000 people, I can't say everyone is pro-Hamas or pro-terrorist. I think there's genuinely people who are captured by what they're seeing online, and they feel something from that, and they want to say that they are against war. And traditionally, we have had anti-war movements in Australia for many different conflicts, but the main people who are involved in the organizing of these protests, I would characterize some of them perhaps as having pro-terrorism, pro-Hamas sentiment in the way that they just completely flat out sell the propaganda, the way that they tell this particular conflict to Australians by ignoring the atrocities committed by Hamas. They don't want to touch on the fact that there's still these hostages being held for almost 2 years now, which is disgraceful. This is a terrorist organization, and they don't want to tell those stories to the Australian public. But at the same time, they also hate the Australian public because they hate the Australian flag. So she makes a very good point with that super chat, Avi. There's definitely an element in that group who are pro-terrorism and pro-Hamas. This is from Cup Time. For Rebel News giving us the real news, thanks. Thanks for the super chat.
I think
really appreciate that.
Cup Time is talking about during COVID and just comparing it to the rubbish you were feeding my wife.
Something.
Thank you. Thank you for the super chat. I am. Australia's mainstream media, mainly peaceful protests. CNN. It's exactly what it was tonight on Channel 9, which is just ridiculous. Like, how do you film that and then?
Well, look, if this was a right-wing protest, for instance, let's just say on a different cause about Australian nationalism, and someone walked in there with an Aboriginal flag or a Palestinian flag, and God forbid someone put their hands on them and even pushed them away, the media would not say it's a mostly peaceful protest. They would say it's a violent right-wing protest attended by Nazis. Like, that's how they would portray that. It's such a scene unfolded. So
you're so right.
There is a difference. Judah says, thanks for the super chat. Patriotism is seen as the threat, not terrorists. Yeah. There is this link that these groups continue to make between the settlement of Australia, that they say is the same as what happened in Israel, for instance, these settler colonizers, they call them, and that the whole system must be dismantled. So when they're out there advocating for the destruction of Israel in many instances with this river to the sea chants, they attribute that the same way to Australia by saying always was, always will be Aboriginal land, to deny the sovereignty of this nation. And like we've talked about many times, the history is very different between the two countries, but it's this hate of the nation, the hate of country, and the hate of people not being divided. Like there's many Australians from all different backgrounds that want to live together. Aboriginal Australians, and white Australians, for instance, there are many who agree and want to have this shared identity. But these groups are totally against that here in Australia. And of course, they look at the situation in Israel where, there's a big Arab population in Israel itself, and there's different ethnic minorities and religious minorities that live in peace together and don't want to be divided. They deny that whole thing that it exists. It's all about their worldview. And that's what's playing out here in the streets of Melbourne. And it's a very small group, Avi, but they do get that good coverage from the media.
Yeah, and it's funny because in the report as well, if you listen to the report, they said a massive group. It actually wasn't such a big group. It was quite a small group, and police moved in, started picking them off one by one until they agreed to move on. Okay, here we've got a definition of piss off quick.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
And I think we agree with that sentiment. Okay, so let's move on to the next actual story that we had planned. Actually, what am I talking about? Speaking of thuggish pro-Palestinian activists, our good friend Hashtaya, and this was actually pretty decent reporting that hasn't gotten much attention at all. That's why I want to read it, because it hasn't been anywhere else besides for this report on ABC that I could find, and it was quite an in-depth report. So Burgertory boss Hashtaya sold restaurant to career criminal amid business sell-off. Imagine my shock. The guy who his businesses were crashing, and they were, from this article you can see, we'll read a little bit of them, they were crashing before, like when he started becoming this activist for, the lead activist for Palestine or whatever, he was kind of rebranding himself because his businessman identity was crashing. So he was becoming this career activist, and using the fact that he was this businessman to give it to kind of give him that brand recognition or legitimacy or whatever it was. And then when the shop burnt down, amid all these debts that he was getting, and there was lots of rumors because actually his landlord in Caulfield was Jewish, and there were a lot of rumors around at the time that the business was really struggling. Suddenly the business burns down and he just conveniently blames it on the activism and the Jews. When it turns out, imagine my shock that not only has he got such, connections to career criminals, it was clear to anyone at the time who knew the community and also could see what Hashtaya was really about, that there was a lot more to the story. And this is a story. In short, they say the former head of the Burgertory restaurant chain transferred ownership. So they say sold, but transferred ownership is and that's why you can say that there is this connection. Transferred ownership of a burger joint to a heroin-addicted car thief amid a sell-off of now defunct businesses. Company documents show that Hashtag sold Burgertory Mentone, which was subject to a $500,000 leasing deal in March of 2023. Despite shutting the shopfront a month earlier. So just understand what happened there. And this is before October 7th. That's why I say when he stepped up to be the face of the anti-Israel movement, his businesses were crashing. He essentially, when they say he sold Burgertory Mentone, it means he transferred the ownership. There was not really any money. There may have been $1, whatever. It's not for money. He was basically moving it into a guy, a heroin addicted car thief. He was moving it over there so that when they come after him, essentially for the debt, he's like, well, I don't own it anymore. You have to go after this guy that has nothing. So it's not worth. That's kind of the trick that you would do. What's next? Mr. Hashtag has denied selling the business in an attempt to avoid liabilities and associated with his enterprises. So this proven time and time liar, who now we also know was a failed businessman, he says, no, I didn't transfer it to this criminal because
liabilities.
To avoid liability. I did it because it seemed like a good deal. Let's have a.
He does come across as a dubious individual. Like, I don't know too much about him, but the fact that he kind of defaulted to that whatever happened in to the Burgertory store, that the arson or whatever it was a hate crime, and without any proof whatsoever, and he kind of went with that line. From that moment on, I'd been suspicious of his motives around this, and then seeing all of these things. Of course, if someone sets up a shell company in some person that's a drug addict's name or something like that, we would look at that and be like, that's very questionable and shady. Same thing applies here, especially given the fact that now we know that the ATO is very seriously after him as well. And this is just a long litany now of things which makes you question everything else that he said and done throughout the last few years.
Well, I've been questioning and saying, and remember, I even questioned some of his followers on the ground at one of the protests, which are convinced he's not lying, convinced that the even though they arrested the guys and they were associated to the tobacco wars, and obviously Hash is clearly connected to career criminals. It was just so obvious. It was blatantly obvious. But now it's interesting, and I want to read what they actually found because. Like I said, nobody's really reporting on this outside of this one reporter for the ABC who's done a proper investigation. And, it's rare. We rarely get that. But it's funny to me that this is proper journalism that's not getting the airtime it deserves.
Well, I wonder what he did to trigger the ABC.
Well, I think it's one reporter at the ABC. That's all it takes. Like sometimes these institutions, like what's the saying? A broken clock is right twice a day. Every once in a while, a journalist wants to do, and I think there are people, who have seen this guy and the multiple lies on top of lies that he's done, and the injustice of those lies. Like the entire Jewish community was watching this guy. Spread essentially a modern day blood libel. That's what they used. That's what blood libels, were. The pogroms started from them blaming Jews for attacking businesses, or the blood libel was the Christian blood in the matzah. That's like what Candace Owens has revived. She says they're true, but that's literally where blood libel comes from. But the former boss of Burgertory restaurant chain transferred ownership of a burger joint to a heroin addicted car thief amid a sell-off of the now defunct business. A transferee who is currently on remand for so this is not somebody that was a heroin addict. This is somebody that's currently on remand over more than 30 drug theft and weapons charges, is now accused of failing to honour a $500,000 leasing deal. Oh my goodness, imagine my shock. Hashtag founded the Burgertory franchise, which has outlets across Victoria in 2018, but resigned as CEO of the company less than a month after being hit with $1 million tax bill for debts allegedly run up by 13 companies. So again, this is a guy that so he sold off that business that was collapsing, and he stepped down when the ATO came after him. Company documents show Mr. Teo sold Burgertory Mentone, which ran a short-lived burger outlet in Melbourne's southeastern suburbs, to 30-year-old George Sakoon from Dandenong, one of your boys. Did you go to school with him?
Mate,
much?
As soon as you sell off your business to some dude in Dandenong to transfer ownership, then
We
definitely
know.
I would say, as someone from Dandenong, that something shady is going on.
Yeah.
That is a litmus test. That is, if you sell it to someone in Dandenong, that and you're just transferring ownership and you got in massive debt or whatever, then definitely something shady is going on.
We know what you're up to. At the same time, Mr. Sakun also replaced Mr. Taya as director of the company. The month after Sakun took over Burgertory Mentone, Mr. Taya resigned as director of another 17 businesses, where he was replaced by his 23-year-old executive assistant, Ismail Ibn Anas Uchamacha. Mr. Taya has, sorry, I cooked his name, but whatever. I'm sure he's a nice guy. He's associated to Taya. Mr. Taya has defended the transactions, saying none of them were an attempt to avoid liabilities associated with the companies. I do not and have never avoided.
You know what? I think Hashtaya has the great, job skills and the experience now to apply for the Hamas Ministry of Health, because this all sounds very familiar to me.
It's
these
so
denials.
True. It's like it runs through his blood. I am working through every legal and commercial matter transparently and with full engagement. This guy doesn't know what transparent, and he wouldn't know what transparent means. He's a compulsive liar. Mr. Uchman has been approached for comment in the federal court over the past 2 months. The ATO has liquidated 13 Burgertory-related companies, but Mr. Taya has told the ABC the chain is in good financial shape and said the ATO's pursuit of him is due to a campaign of targeted harassment, which is important to note. Well, firstly, one, like you said, he should be running the Hamas because the Hamas PR team, because he's like, we can see what's going on, but he's saying it's in good financial shape. And then his claim of a campaign of targeted harassment has been the narrative the whole time. And it's like, dude, it was failing in March 2023. That's before October 7.
Yep.
What campaign targeted harassment, dude? You've crashed a business. And to be honest, like anybody that's actually had a Burgertory burger will tell you why the business has crashed. It must have been like a Ponzi scheme, because apparently they are the worst burgers you could ever buy. They're disgusting. And so, like my brother told me the other day, he actually had one. I told him, what are you doing? How are you having a Burgertory? He goes, yeah, I was on a Tinder date and there was a Burgertory and we went in there. She wanted a Burgertory. And he goes, I would have left her at that moment. I didn't realize. So he's been funding the...
Well, I'm not going to make a comment. I've never had a Burgertory burger, but yeah, I've seen them around. Definitely, I've seen them around. I didn't really know this whole story until, obviously, the prominence of Hashtag in the public sphere with the pro-Palestine stuff. But it's been a very public meltdown almost of him in many respects. I don't know if he took the correct course with all the decisions that he's made. Especially with his public statements, but definitely people aren't looking at him as a serious person anymore, for sure.
No, he's a joke and he's clearly dishonest. But like I kind of knew that because there's so many things that I knew that through his activism that were lies. But here, I'm just really happy that this all started in March of 2023 because his whole narrative makes no sense then. Burgertory burger shop stripped and abandoned. On March 1, 2023, between two stretches behind bars, Mr. Sakun purchased Burgertory Mentone and another company, Rath BBB, from Mr. Taya. Company documents show. By then, the burger outlet on Balcombe Road that Burgertory Mentone ran had been closed for a month. It shuttered in February 2023, according to Facebook posts, the Uber Eats website, and the property's landlord. So he didn't do it to avoid anything, but somehow after it closed, it mysteriously got transferred to a guy between jail stints. The outlet was only opened in August 2022, according to a post on Burgertory's Facebook page. When the business was closed, it carried a substantial ongoing liability, a 10-year lease at $51,000 a year plus GST. The company has since been deregistered, and the landlord told the ABC he hasn't received any rent since the outlet closed. The space has been empty since and is currently for lease. He, Mr. Sakun, abandoned the store without notice, stripping the premises of all equipment and fittings, which put our company in an extremely difficult and unfair position with the landlord, Mr. Taya said. He's always the victim of everything that ever happens. Despite having no legal obligations to do so, he's always the victim and the champion. Notice this. Despite having no legal obligations to do so, as the lease and responsibilities were with Mr. Sakun, we stepped in, restored the premises to the landlord's satisfaction, and funded all agreed repairs in good faith. What a champion. This guy, he deserves Australian of the Year. The legal and financial obligations for the store were always with Mr. Sakun as the franchisee and operator. Like, he actually gave this comment to the ABC. Yeah. The ABC uncovered that he sold the business after it had closed to a dude that clearly had no real money, was in between jail stints. And he wants us to believe that he was the good guy that restored the premises to the original thingo, but they're not paying the rent because obviously they have no... Be reasonable. Mr. Sakun bought it. Mr. Sakun, I don't know how to pronounce it, is currently on remand and could not be contacted for comment. Rath BBB was associated with the Bean Lab coffee shop in Braybrook, but Mr. Taya said the company no longer had anything to do with the business, which was now owned and operated by a completely separate entity with no connection to me. Neither of the companies Mr. Sakun took over are subject to ATO action. So that's not even his ATO problems. Burgertory Mentone was deregistered in April, and Rath BBB is in the process of being struck off. New owners 3 prison stints. Mr. Sakun faced a Dandenong Magistrates Court last month where he said he would plead guilty to at least 37 offences, including stealing cars and possessing drugs and weapons. The court heard he had begun an apprenticeship as a mechanic but not finished it. So you want to tell me that this guy had the money to buy a proper business? It seems like he's running some kind of operation. He doesn't steal the cars, but they come to him to be touched up, Magistrate Christina Windisch said during the hearing. The court heard Mr. Sakun was receiving regular methadone injections to combat his heroin addiction while serving his 3rd stint in prison. He's been on remand to face his current set of charges for more than 7 months.
Everyone's in the comments feel like asking us to explain this story faster because I think everyone's got the point of how dodgy this is.
Okay,
it's a
we're
massive
done.
investigation. Like, it's massibut look at that.
Go read it. Go read it.
It's
It's so funny to me because you know what? The only reason why I wanted to spend so much time on it, but because I've been vindicated about everything I said about this guy who threatened to sue me a million times and never did shit. This is the pro-Palestinian activist. This is the lead pro-Palestinian activist, and he's always been dodgy. And everybody, and including the media, have just published his nonsense that he would just dribble. And what's finally come out, and he's not getting the attention all these other lies have gotten, is the fact that he's dodgy as can be at best. And he's facing some real problems, both with the ATO, but it seems further than that. But let's move on. Let's read these super chats and we'll go on to the next story.
We got one from Incy Nizi. Hamas lie to the world, but are transparent about their hatred and true intentions to anyone who looks beyond the surface. It baffles me that the world's media are so evil as to ignore the surface level propaganda. I mean, that's a great super chat. Thanks for that contribution. And it's so true because they are actually very honest about the things that they are doing and want to do. Both, Hamas in Gaza, when they released the videos of hostages, or when they release their talking points and what they want to do, as well as the leaders of the activism around the world in the West. They're if you ask them, they'll actually tell you exactly what they're doing. But the media does gloss over it and ignores that part of it to stitch on their own narrative to what they think should be happening. And it's insane. Like, these people are telling you directly, like, this is what they think of the people in Israel, for instance. This is what they think of Jews. This is what they think of your own country. Australia, we hate the country, we hate the flag. They're telling you all of these things, but you want to gloss over all of that because, I don't know. I don't even know how to explain that phenomenon.
Well, I think it comes down to their hate for Israel, and for some people it's the Jews. The hate for either of those is greater than their love for their own country. And you're seeing that. You're seeing that, on the left, that's very easy because they hate Australia openly and they hate Israel, like you said, for many of the same reasons. But on the right, you're seeing people, and you're seeing it in America as well, like people who claim to be conservatives, Republicans, whatever, MAGA, and they're saying they would vote for a Democrat, with all the policies they're supposed to hate, as long as they're anti-Israel. So, and that's why, like, even Mamdani, being supported by people like Sneeko, like, these people genuinely hate hate Israel, hate Jews more than they love their own country, and that's a really sad place to live. Like, people are so full of hate at the moment, and as hard as it is to be on the receiving end of that hate, it must be hard and must suck to live with such hate in your head and your heart.
Yeah, definitely. Catherine, thank you. Yeah, we believe you, Taya. Want to buy a teapot? Chocolate teapot? What is it?
I don't know. It's an emoji. Yes, but it feels good not to be the only person that sees him for what he is.
Sweetie, thanks for the super chat. I'm transferring ownership of these $2, mate. Yeah, that's how much it takes. I think you can just do $1 to transfer ownership. I'm not exactly sure of
why again are you talking down somebody that's giving a super chat?
No. I'm saying
Equity gave $2.99. Equity gave $2.99, and you're convincing him to give $1 instead. No, yes, transfer ownership can be like $1. So when they say sold, that's like technically sold, but it probably was for something nominal, because by the sounds of old mate, he's got no money. He's a heroin addict that's stealing things. He's a petty criminal, it sounds like. So he doesn't have any real money.
Sunnyside First Fleet, thanks for the super chat. Burgertory sounds like purgatory, a place or state of suffering for sinners before going to heaven. As a Catholic, relevant. I mean, yeah, we'll take that as a statement, and we can definitely make those type of connections based on the ownership or previous ownership and some of the statements we've made in the past.
Yes, you got to be technical about it. It has nothing to do with it.
No.
He's a saint, though.
Michael Thorpe, thanks for the super chat, mate. How many Roman Catholics at Burgertory rhymes with purgatory? There you go. Purgatory. We'll just call it Purgatory from now on.
Yep, done. Thanks for the super chat, guys. And Baz is back.
When they tell us they hate us, I believed them. I think that is a great lesson for many of the West to learn, that when people tell you to your face that they hate you, and they're very open about it in a society where there's not many consequences for them being like that, that you should take them at their face value and really think about their motivations if they had it all their way. And I think that's why we can't reconcile perhaps the actions of Israel to defend itself, because I think the people there truly believe that this is the existential threat to their very existence of the state of Israel, that they have to defend themselves. And in the West here, we're kind of everything's sugar-coated. We think it's all they're just saying stuff, or they're just angry. But no, these people actually truly hate you when they're talking about hating the country and hating the flag, and they will turn violent. And as we saw in that footage earlier today that we played in front of Flinders Street Station, violence is the natural state of many of these activists, unfortunately.
Yep. And like it's so bizarre that so many people bend over backwards to try justify and excuse some of that behaviour when it is so obvious. Anyways, move on to the next story. A case that's been heard in the court this week in New South Wales is the appeal of Giggle versus Tickle. The background to that was you had a women's app that...
Yep.
Where
Was
is it?
for women connecting with each other.
Yeah, so this person...
Roxanne Tickle.
Roxanne Tickle.
Yeah, he's on the left.
Is on the left. And this was on the right was the owner of the app.
The app, the developer, yep.
For women. The one on the left joined the app. I'm being very careful because we're on some platforms where I don't want to tell you, I don't want to assume anyone's genders here. But the one on the left joined the app, and the app decided, no, this is for biological women, and kicked him off. Now, lost the original case, which was wild, and this has been the appeal, and very much supported by J.K. Rowling. Should we watch a minute of this?
Yeah, let's watch a minute of it, definitely.
The app was meant to be a safe online space for biological females, a place women didn't risk having to cop harassment or, heaven forbid, dick pics. Hey, the clue is in the name, Giggle for girls. But after creating the app, Grover says she was flooded with thousands of applications from biological males trying to infiltrate it. Tickle managed to slip through thanks to artificial intelligence. But after Grover personally reviewed Tickle's selfie, she blocked the activist. In September, Justice Bromwich found Grover had indirectly discriminated against Tickle, ordering her to pay damages of $10,000 plus legal costs.
Judge found is that there's 30 years of legal precedent, legal cases which have found that woman includes trans women.
The judgment not only set a new legal precedent in Australia, it sent shockwaves around the world. It also garnered Grover the support of the world's most famous warrior for women's sex-based rights, Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling. Rowling tweeted, "One day, and I hope in the not-too-distant future, we'll meet Sal. In the meantime, total solidarity." Now, the full court of the federal court has agreed to hear Grover's appeal to overturn this ruling over 4 days next month. The appeal is on the grounds the judge failed to consider the broader context of the act, arguing the app's female-only policy was a special measure intended to address the unique disadvantages faced by women in digital spaces and thus should not be considered discriminatory. While much of Roxanne Tickle's legal work was done pro bono, Grover had to crowdfund hers. She's now looking at legal costs of $1.5 million, double that if her appeal fails and she takes it all the way to the High Court. News of the appeal comes as it was revealed today convicted double murderer Terry Mark Donai had applied to transfer to a women's prison after identifying as female. Donai now goes by the name Mackenzie and wants to serve the remaining 24 years of his sentence for the brutal slaying of a friend's adoptive parents in a women's correctional centre. It's total insanity. But that's where we are with a debate about women's spaces. Back to Grover's case, and she's not the only Australian fighting for women's spaces. Political advocate Kirralie Smith is currently awaiting judgment set down for 2 weeks' time over 2 discrimination cases brought by trans soccer players, Riley Dennis of the Sydney team Flying Bats, and a player from another team we can't name for legal reasons, for saying they should not be able to play in women's sports teams.
No one can change sex. Men are not women and no man should be in women's sport.
But attempts by media outlets like ours to bring these cases to the public can be met with interference. Riley Dennis was shielded from our cameras by members of the Bikes on Dykes, and we were accused by her supporters of intimidation and harassment.
This is intimidation and harassment. Get out of our way. This is intimidation and harassment.
Lovely bunch. Look, this is one of those things, Avi. There is these kind of legal things that we have to be worried about as well when discussing these things, because these groups do get the lawyers involved a lot of times, like you're seeing. Like, these cases seem a bit ridiculous, but that is the nature now of what we face in this country, especially women. Really, like, this is really impacting women. We don't really see, men, men's spaces being invaded by trans men or something like this. It's not in the same manner that it impacts men,
but it's also not as, like, whilst it is also wrong, it's not as dangerous. Like, a woman coming into a men's space by choice is, if anything, often putting herself in danger, as opposed to, like, the example of that bloke wanting to be moved to a women's prison, a murderer. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, exactly. And we've seen stuff go wrong overseas. So, especially when it relates to this app, like, let's say you are, women, and you just want to, get connect with women and hang out with women, and then all of a sudden you're faced with this. Well, that definitely changes the dynamics of the app. And for these definitions in law to recognize that transgender women are the same, that's what kind of the argument was. It appears that the judge accepted it first time around as being, okay, well, then now they have the same exact access to women as everyone else, and that's the status quo almost in many aspects, right?
Totally.
So I think it's a very important case, and I think good on Sally for challenging it. And it does have a lot of international eyes. Like, people around the world are watching, see what happens here in Australia, because it will set somewhat of a precedent. Because going in, into the future, other people that create apps like this or spaces like this just for women will be terrified of the repercussions, and will have no choice but to not discriminate by allowing essentially, in many instances, people that sometimes decide over a period of months to change back to another gender. Like, this happens. So, again, I'm being very careful with how I'm trying to word all of this, but this is a massive problem that our societies are facing.
And this appeal,
the federal court,
so this appeal finished, actually, it was supposed to finish today, but it finished yesterday. It finished early. The appeal does come after there was a High Court ruling in London. Since this initial ruling in, was it the Federal Court? Whatever, the one that she first lost.
Yeah.
Well, the first one was in the Supreme Court, maybe?
Perhaps, yeah.
And now they're in, and then now they're in the appeals court. So there's still the High Court that they can technically go to if it goes. But basically, this time they have, as some sort of precedence, a High Court ruling from the UK in which they actually defined a woman legally as a biological woman. So it'll be interesting to see how the judgment comes. The judgment will probably come out in 6, 7, 8, 9 months.
I saw somewhere February.
It might be, probably. Like, it's look, you never know. No one would know because they don't. That's just the nature of it. But they're guessing 6 to 9 months, I think. So we'll talk about that when it comes back. I'm sure if they lose this appeal, they will likely go back to the High Court. And since they are crowdfunding it, they do have support of people like J.K. Rowling that can only help. That's a bit like Tommy having support of Elon Musk to fight his cases. So it's always helpful when there's somebody who is rich who can help cover the costs. But I think let's go on to the next subject. Maybe you give us a bit of background on what's going on here.
Look, this is probably something that's for like one of those women's magazines or one of the View or something to discuss, right? It shouldn't be on the Opposition podcast. But this is somewhat of a cultural phenomenon where we have an ad that's come out from this company, American Eagle, and it's been a few days, but this has been discussed at length. And it features a lovely looking woman, a white woman, with blonde hair or whatever, a celebrity as well, and she's done an ad for this American Eagle brand where it says Sydney Sweeney has great genes. Now, because of this, all of the leftists and progressives, everyone that sees racism in almost everything that they look at, people that think milk is racist, have looked at this ad and said this is like the heralding of a new age of Nazism, right? This is white supremacy.
So
How dare she? They've had all these meltdowns. I think our friend, your mate, Abby Chatfield, had a bit of a meltdown.
Yeah, we'll watch. I've got a little thing on
over
that.
this as well. And again, it's just this ridiculous thing that Western society seem to be going through, where all of a sudden an attractive young woman who happens to be white is the face of an ad campaign. And because of the wordplay of that particular ad, like everyone is so incensed. Like this is the things that people are outraged by when there are very real issues in society. And here we have an image of a influencer. I was about to use another term for that. But here we have an influencer, for instance, and she's holding up the bird to her with both of her fingers, and I can't remember what her caption on that image was when she put it up on Instagram. But this is the type of hatred that we're seeing, and Avi, like in the past, when just say during the era of Biden and the Democrats and the Obamas and so on, and even Trump's last term, that woman on the left, for instance, and I'm not going to be disparaging towards her, but that she would feature on ads like this, for instance, these kind of models, and apparently that was like glorious and beautiful and great, and this is exactly what the world needs. Whereas now today, for again, an attractive lady like Sydney Sweeney does this, then it's an emblem of racism and hatred and everything that's wrong with society, and it's just insane.
It is
and
totally insane.
And it's something we see a lot. Again, I want to just make this very clear in the West. These things don't happen in other parts of the world. Like in other parts of the world, they celebrate people who, whatever reason, like in that society, they think that this particular group of people are attractive and they're the ones that should be on commercials. Like like the tall, model-like looking people, or the person, or the guys that look good and have nice hair. The James Dean types. All other countries around the world still have this standard of beauty. Whereas, in the West, apparently the beauty means not exactly what it means. It means like diversity. And that is why people are so offended by this.
It's, it's infuriating that the idea that like a white girl suddenly you can't say that she has great genes. Like she has great genes. And how is that a problem? Like if she was black, that's okay. If it's okay to say about a black person, it has to be okay to say about a white person, or that is racism. These people are racist. And when you look at this photo, for example, and you see this person on the left who clearly just doesn't have good genes, has bad genes, not because they're black, but because they're ugly. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just.
Well, she's got something that makes like there's genetic things where you can become a beast. So you could have a genetic like a thing.
So that's bad genes.
Well, I mean, it depends. Like some people like
no
the
no one likes it. People pretend.
No,
a lot of people pretend.
Some people.
No one
people
likes.
Not me. Not me.
No one likes.
Me, Avi,
no
but
one
some
likes.
people do.
No one
some
likes.
people do.
No one likes.
I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to be nice here. Right?
Well, stop.
I'm trying to be nice.
Stop.
All right.
Let's read a couple of super chats quickly.
Let's read the super chats. Equity, the app accepted Chris. No problem. Well, with his softly spoken feminine voice, I think Giggle would have had a tough time of figuring out if Chris Overees was.
To be honest, if Chris Overees was in court fighting for her space on that app, I'd probably side with Chris.
Yeah.
Because
definitely.
I don't think by a selfie, what's her name, Sal, could determine that would be discrimination. So yeah, I'm with you. You guys are mean. It's Varen says it's true. See the transcript. I love how we've got all these in jokes now. Like,
yeah, that's great. I love it.
Guys, if you're new to this stream, tonight you haven't been watching our show and you don't get the jokes, the lesson here is to keep up. Tune in every Tuesday and Thursday night, and you'll know the jokes. You'll know the in-jokes. What do we got?
Jimmy, thanks for the super chat. Trans are using female bathrooms already. I've seen that as well.
I've seen it
out in the real world here in Melbourne, and I've seen it a few times.
Hold on, Melbourne's not the real world. Just pointing that out.
No, I'm just saying out in the real. Yeah, of course it's not. But yeah, it is becoming
Melbourne's
more common.
clown world.
And then I've been to some facilities now where it's just like, it's got like a female bathroom and the male bathroom is like everyone. That's yeah. Sorry, it's got a male bathroom and the female bathroom is like everyone. Yeah.
Unisex. Yeah. You know what? I don't even have a problem when there's like different stalls and it's both fine, because then you're not. But it annoys me when they have a male and then shed, like, so they're making the point that they don't want to discriminate, like they don't want to make a women, which is crazy, because why would you have a male? I guess because they can have a urinal, so they're saying you can have a urinal, but then the other one is unisex or whatever, all sexes. The world we live in. Anyways, let's watch Abby's apparent. There's a little clip. I don't know if this is what you were talking about, but we'll watch it and see if this is the meltdown over Sydney Sweeney. Oh, 1 second. What's going on? Shit. Hold on. I gotta find it now. It's crashed.
Sorry. And look, staying on the Sydney Sweeney story, the other problem has been, of course, for her now, all of a sudden now that because she's featured on this ad being this attractive white woman that, the left has now associated with Nazism, they've also then linked that back to Trumpism and saying that, she's a registered Republican. And, Donald Trump's come out and said, oh, that's great. If she's a registered Republican, whatever, good on her. I like this ad even more, whatever Donald Trump says, right? And that's incensed people even more. And there does feel like there's a campaign now out there to get her because of her political views, potentially, which shouldn't even matter at all. Like, there's all manner of people that have progressive views on commercials and things like this, and I don't think people care about that necessarily. So, she's in the limelight now for purely just being an attractive young lady that happens to be on an ad that now become this political firestorm, and everyone is just interested in her politics now, and they want to link her back to Trump and everything that's wrong that they believe is wrong in America. So it is one of these phenomena that, again, we see in the West, and it's quite cringe that there's people melting down over this all over TikTok and the usual places that some of these purple head freaks hang out, as well as Abby Chatfield. Here we go.
I don't know. I'll just refresh it because Instagram doesn't let you just rewind it.
In an American Eagle campaign. It references her blonde hair, blue eyes. It's not a good look. People are saying, how could no one have said anything? People definitely said something. Young people, I think people of colour would have flagged it, whether it is quietly to their friend at work after the meetings going, this is a little bit weird, don't you think? And they would have been told, no, it's fine. They would have maybe told their boss or told the person from marketing or accounts or whatever. There would have been conversations about it. The issue is no one listens to these people. This is when it comes down to structural issues and where white supremacy as a whole comes in. Because people of colour in these workplaces would have been silenced and dismissed and gaslit and told that they were overreacting.
Shut up, you
I'm not saying this happened in this specific instance. What I'm saying is, I know when...
She's like, it's just so annoying to hear a white person like this speaking on behalf of like people of colour.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
the white guilt. Like, what are you talking about? The only people offended by this are white uni students with hairy underarms.
Yeah, it's so
and
true.
Blue
like,
hair.
I can say, for instance, even in Asian countries, I know, like even in Bollywood and stuff, they will put white people sometimes in certain scenes and shots, and as certain featured actresses or in a part of certain things, because they see that as a standard of beauty for whatever reason, right or wrong. So this thing about all diverse people are offended by it is just complete nonsense. Like, I can look at Sydney Sweeney and be like, yeah, she's a beautiful young lady. I don't necessarily look at her skin color but she's an attractive woman that is a celebrity and that is doing her thing, and that's great. Whereas someone like Abby Chatfield, who has the retard gene, really, that's the gene that she has, that she was blessed with at birth, to our great annoyance. All she sees is it through some other weird lens that has been created in the last few decades by these activists and these academics that is non-existent.
And the one they are photographing, I still get told to shut up. Unless a person of colour is in power, nothing will change. And that's also why it's so important to have people of colour or people of different marginalised groups in power in these C-suites as CEO, CFO, CMO, whatever, because that is a top-down issue.
Isn't she the same person who complained through the Obama years that there was systemic racism in America?
I think so, yeah.
She's so full of shit. It's
I don't know. Look, as a person of color, I will say categorically that I do not want to see brown fat people on commercials just for the sake of it. Right? I don't want to be in that world. It's ridiculous. Like she's crazy white people coming up with crazy white ideas. I think I'm not trying to generalize here, but this is a part of that problem, Harvey, that we've been talking about now for years. And they just can't let it go. They just cannot let it go. And they'll pick apart anything, in this case, just a woman being on a commercial or an ad, as being this entire attack on everything. And it's just insane.
There you go, super chat.
Says, Baz, thanks, mate. I prefer hot women over fat women. I am a bigot. Apparently, I checked the transcript, mate. Thanks for the super chat.
Yes, you bigot. Poor streamer. He's just going to cop it forever over his.
Had enough. This is from Sunny First Fleet. Had enough French postmodern deconstructionist cynical pulling people down theory. A woman is a woman, and she has great white women genes. Yeah, like we should still in this. There is nothing at all in appreciating beautiful white women. There you go. I said that. Nothing at all wrong with
my
that.
wife is a beautiful white woman, and I appreciate her and her genes. Fucking idiots. What do we got?
Catherine, a Gene ad is a tribute to the 90s Brooke Shields ad. Yes, so there is an older ad from the 90s where she does the same thing. Brooke Shields says, I have great genes. But back then, no one would have raised an eyelid because the world is a bit more sane in the 90s. Whereas today, of course, it's different. Baron, Abby Chatfield has soiled her genes.
All right, that was a good comment. Yeah, she has. That is pretty funny. Listen, Abby Chatfield got dropped as a kid a few times. I don't know if it's a genes problem or just...
No, I think it's genetic.
Definitely you think it might be genetic?
Okay. I think so.
Have you met the family?
No comments.
Okay, next story. Let's have a watch.
But we shouldn't, trick ourselves into thinking that they will,
Jeez, this is going to get me in trouble. Hold on, I've got to turn this sound off.
Go the extra mile necessarily in, protecting the community if there isn't a clear kind of return on investment for that.
Oh, it's just their bloody... Okay.
Welcome. What do you make of the report, and is the Productivity Commission arguing for a hands-off approach to regulation?
The Productivity Commission has been really bold in saying that there's a $116 billion fillip to our GDP that is available if we really lean into AI adoption. And that may be right or it may not be right, but they're really leaning into that. And on the other hand, they're saying we have to be willing to give up some of our protections for privacy, for content creation and so on. And I think that there's a bit of an imbalance there.
A new report from the E-Safety Commissioner today says big tech companies aren't doing enough when it comes to combating child exploitation material on their platforms. Is the Productivity Commission simply trusting big tech to do the right thing when it comes to AI?
Look, I think, if it's a tech company or a non-tech company, it exists very legitimately to maximise its profits and to maximise its value to shareholders. And there's nothing wrong with that. But we shouldn't, trick ourselves into thinking that they will, go the extra mile necessarily in protecting the community if there isn't a clear kind of return on investment for that. And that's the role of regulation. It makes sure that we don't end up with a kind of lowest common denominator effect, but rather we hold everyone to a standard that treats people fairly, protects people's basic rights.
But in order to realise the dividends that the Productivity Commission is talking about, can we only do that if we trade away copyright and privacy protections?
Definitely not. We've seen in waves of innovation over the past that when you put in good guardrails, what that does is that it builds value over the longer term. In other words, good innovators respond really well to protections and understanding where the limits of what they're allowed to do are, and then they develop products and services that the community really wants, rather than the kinds of things that we kind of go, gosh, well, I'm stuck with this product or service. I have to use it, but I'm not happy about it. And that really doesn't, I think, build a happy economy.
The Productivity Commission is asking the government to pause its planned mandatory guidelines in this area. What do you make of that? Do you think that by what the government has said so far that it's interested in trying to over-regulate AI?
I don't think that anyone could accuse Australia of over-regulating for AI. We've literally had no new laws that are specifically directed towards AI in Australia. What the mandatory guardrails reform was designed to do was essentially to give really practical principles for companies that are developing and deploying AI to follow, to reduce the risk that they might hurt the community. There are reasonable arguments about precisely where those lines should be drawn, but the idea that inherently that is a dangerous or risky approach for our economy, I think, is wrong-headed.
Are you surprised by the tone of this report from the Productivity Commission?
Well, I do think that there is some balance in what the Productivity Commission is saying. It's saying, in principle, the law and indeed guidance can be useful for the community because it protects the community against harm, and it can be useful for business because it provides regulatory certainty. So they're really strong on that. But the problem, I think, seeps in, which is that there are some very sweeping statements about reform, for example, to privacy or copyright law. Privacy law reform has been the subject of huge amounts of consultation by both sides of government over many, many years now. And the idea that there's some inherent problem with that and that the Productivity Commission kind of cast doubt on that really, really deep work, I think is quite worrisome.
The Commissioner, Dr. Stephen King, says individually the productivity dividends from AI could be as high as $4,300 per capita
I think that's probably
per
enough
year.
that one.
Are those?
What do you make of it?
These guys go on for a while. Look, this is a very interesting space. Like, obviously, AI space, AI is almost everywhere now when we think about our lives. Like, how much do we kind of use it without even knowing?
I don't even know what legislation there is, but as soon as they say that Australia doesn't overregulate, I'm like, there's no chance of that. They overregulate everything in this country.
It's very overregulated. But in terms of the AI space, I think the question is, do we want to be a player in that market as it's booming, in every other market? And do you want to, allow Australia to be a part of that innovation that's happening in AI? And what these companies really want, these tech companies wanting access to Australian material, for instance, they're talking about copyright material, Australian, artwork, music, text, because it broadens the understanding of these AI models in terms of, Australianisms, I guess, in a way. I'm just making it very simple here. And should we stop that from happening when we access these AI tools to have that inputted in there as well? I think right now it's not an industry that should be overly regulated because we don't really understand the true impact of it. You know what I mean? Like we do become this nanny state in Australia sometimes, like you said, where we over-regulate everything. I think it's a time of discovery in the AI field. We're seeing these innovations happen almost on a weekly basis where these things are changing so rapidly that I don't think Australia should be left out of that arms race that's going on. And if it means, our intellectual property and copyright, for instance, being a bit more flexible right now, just to see what happens with this, I think that's better for the country overall. But there is spaces where it could be regulated, like things like, deep fakes, where people are making, porn videos by using someone else's image and creating stuff like this. That is where the government should be looking to potentially, have laws and regulations and things like this. But the actual educational side of it, the way that, it might children might be able to use these tools for homework, whatever it is. I think those areas shouldn't be too over-regulated by the government, and more Australian information should be a part of that AI landscape. But people in the comments might have different views about that as well. But I think it is a revolutionary technology, and it does has its use case scenarios which are positive as well as negative if over-regulated by the government. Because as soon as governments take control, what usually ends up happening is they break everything, or they create systems where they use those same regulations and those same tools to disadvantage the rest of us. And I think that is the fear with the Australian government. So when we hear things like the E-Safety Commission and all these kind of things, when the government is thinking AI and thinking regulation, they're thinking, how can we control the Australian population and how can we use it to our advantage? I think that's where the concern is. I'm not really concerned about AI being used as a means of innovation here in Australia by having more Australian material on there. I think it's probably a good thing at the right time.
Super chats. Varron's back
Abby
up to
King.
his old tricks again, hitting on Abby in the comments. Abby
King has good genes. She definitely has good genes. Thank you, Abby, and thank you, Varun.
Her genes must be good. She's a good supporter.
At least AI can tell a bloke from a Sheila. I think, that's so true. There are things that AI actually does very well, but they do try to make AI woke as well. So that is one of the things that could come with regulation. Like the government could put in rules that AI has to identify, they can't use the word trans woman, or they can't, these kind of things are possible when it comes to the Australian context and how governments here view regulations. So that's possible. Australian AI will be woke.
And last one before we go into the next.
Albo has women's genes. Someone should put him on the ad and make that ad.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that.
Final story of the night. Let's just crack on straight to it. And it's interesting. It comes off the back of what you just said. AI stuffing things up.
Hey.
Bloody music every time.
So
then you go age estimated 31.
31. That's nice. It's wiped 5 years off.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Gotta wait for that music to pass.
16-year-olds immature, editing 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 15 years.
It's not easy nailing down who's over 16 and who's not. Here we have the lo-fi. All you need are lungs and a clipboard.
1042.
But if you want to check the ages of more than 20 million Australians, say in order to kick everyone under 16 off social media, you're going to need a fancier clipboard.
I'm ready.
Closer.
Thinking.
Yeah.
The teen social media ban was passed late last year.
Social media is doing harm to our kids, and I'm calling time.
It's due to start in December, but the law is pretty vague about how they're going to pull it off technically.
Thanks very much for coming along and agreeing to be part of the trial.
So for the last 4 months, the government has been testing out age assurance tech in schools, with more than 1,000 students from different parts of the country.
This is the first trial of its type in the world. It's the same as our social media ban.
They're mostly trialling estimation tools that guess a person's age based on biological traits, things like your voice and hand movements. But the biggest tell of all is your face.
As you age, obviously your ears get bigger and your nose gets bigger. And then sometimes the space between your eyes can change and stuff like that. So there's a whole algorithm in place that can do that looks for those features and then is able to calculate age.
The only problem is it's often wrong, and sometimes by a lot.
1 minute I'm getting 15, the next I'm getting 19. So like,
oh, it gave me 29 that same one. Like, looking at it. It took my whole life. I'm quite about 4 years younger than what I actually am.
I'm getting 23.
On all the tests?
On majority, yeah. 19, 37, 26, and I think it was 23 as well.
Okay, wow.
So yeah, it's pretty inconsistent.
13. Went from 15 to 14 to 13. Getting younger by 10.
Wow. To be fair, not all the guesses are that far off the mark.
You hear the room go when they got the wild ass one that came out. And it's like, oh, this one said I was this age. All the other ones that come through, pretty much, if it's about on par with their age.
Estimated age 17. Okay,
that's pretty accurate.
That's pretty close.
It's actually probably the closest one I've gotten.
But you can see the problem. The official results from the trial aren't back yet, but we've been going along to some of the school trials to see how it's shaping up.
I think it's 85% of the results we were getting were within 18 months of the age that was given by the student.
Back in April, at the first test site we visited in Innisfail, Andrew Hammond, who's been running the trial, had higher hopes.
So from a personal perspective, I think 12 months would be okay. Definitely, I'm confident it's going to get there.
But 2 months on, with the trial done, that 18-month margin of error seems to have held up. And when you think about the possible consequences for anyone who's misjudged by these tools, either being locked out unfairly or dodging the ban, 18 months is a pretty big miss.
And so we are going to see kind of a messy situation emerging immediately where people, will have what they call false positives, false negatives.
Basically, that's the gist of the story. It's pretty obvious that the age it's not working at the moment in the trials. There's no way it's going to work.
This is going to be a massive government bungle come December. December to that whole year, we're just going to be talking about how stupid this whole thing has been handled, and the software that they've been trying to develop for this, which really is a continuous scan of your face. It seems like, whenever you want to access your systems. I don't know if it keeps you logged in or how it will work. We don't really know the details, but they have been trialing it at these schools, which I didn't know till like this week that they'd been doing these trials at these schools. So they kept that pretty hush for a while. But yeah, it's pretty much like a face scanning technology. It seems to be pretty prehistoric in terms of its evolution in the tech as of now. But they could advance that, Avi. That's the thing. They could get more complicated with their biometric scanning and start scanning eyeballs and things like this in the future. So this is just the really infancy of this invasive technology that they're making normal in Australia. And it's not just they're showing the kids scanning their faces like it's going to be kids trying to log accounts, but essentially whatever we just saw there, Avi, is what every single Australian adult or anyone over the age of 16 will be having to do to access their accounts, really. Because how else do you verify people's age if that's the mechanism by which they want to do it? So I think it's problematic. The fact that they're getting false positives this early on means the technology is not developed, and I don't think in the next few months they're going to fix that in a way that it's meaningful. But the whole thing seems completely redundant and stupid.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a world first.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what's going to be more of a flop, that or the machete bins.
They should actually have at the machete bins a face recognition thing before you can drop off your machete. That would be joining both of those stupid things. The machete bins actually cost about $300,000 per bin or something.
It's so insane. It's so insane. I hope somebody steals it because they're worth it. It sounds like. But I wonder if
they poured 70 kilograms of concrete or something into the base to keep them down. I just wanted to mention these stats that I know.
It'd just be funny if somebody comes with an angle grinder and just steals all the machetes. Like I just think it would just be hilarious. But they should have the face scanner, and then like just to troll people, if if you're black, it says bad genes, white, good genes.
Oh man, that.
Speaking of genes, Abby has responded to Varan very openly hitting on her.
Abby King says, correction, I don't have good genes. I got fat in my 30s, but I don't need to be represented in ads. We should all aim to be healthier. Sorry to disappoint Abby. The only good genes that we care about are the people that do super chats. They have excellent genes as far as Avi is concerned.
Because clearly wallet can come out of the genes easily, so we support your genes. It's funny. It's become a thing. We've promoted the Bazia tax because I thought that was great. We've promoted all the different name calling of ovaries. I have encouraged a little bit of this hitting on Abby, but I don't know if that's the right thing to do. But while it makes money, it's right, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, definitely you perhaps have some genes that point towards that direction of likability of such a thing. I don't want to go further into this.
My Jewish genes. Guys, I think tonight we're going to be finishing early. There wasn't that much exciting news tonight. And I'm still recovering from the other night.
Yeah, I mean, even yesterday when I did my show, I spent the first half of the show just explaining my... People were complaining, Avi, about my moderation.
Shocking moderation.
I think, in hindsight, I could have shut you down a few more times, perhaps.
In hindsight, I could have shut myself down.
I think no, but watching it back, if I had shut you down, I think I would have helped to save John, because watching it back and some of his answers to very obvious things, and then seeing the context of it in terms of the shorter clips that you've put out, with some of the things that he, like the Syrian girl interview, for instance, we would have missed some of that perhaps if a conversation didn't take place. And I was saying that I thought the most important thing that people wanted to know was really about John Ruddick's views and the flip that he's done in his views, rather than both of you, fighting over the history of the conflict.
That threw me so off, and especially because he admitted in the show that his entire new history thing, like his worldview, changed after watching a 30-hour podcast with a guy that says that Winston Churchill was the great villain of World War II. Like, why would I don't even get it. Why would, and how would that help us between me and him? He goes, I want to work out a solution with you. We heard his solutions. His solutions were so dumb. Like, why would I debate that with somebody? I'd rather know what, is the libertarian, like, for our audience, I want our audience to decide based on the direction of the New South Wales Libertarians, are they somebody you want to vote for now? That's what for me is more important than hashing out history to come up with a solution for the Middle East issue that a lot of people, a lot smarter and a lot more involved than him and me can do. What we can actually help achieve is people being informed on their voting. No?
Yeah, not even just the voting, just in general, the shift in sentiment, like the why,
Sure,
I'm saying it carries a sense of his position, regardless of what you might think of the Libertarian Party, and having 1 seat or 2 seats, whatever it is, it still carries some weight because he's a New South Wales parliamentarian. He represents a political party. So it's important to understand why such a figure would have these views when a lot of his own members, for instance, in the comments on X, were opposed to his stance. So I thought, to litigate that on the debate or the conversation or the interrogation, some people are calling it, was a valid. And I
was 100% an interrogation. I am not backing away from the idea that I was there to really challenge him, and that's like. Literally my job.
He put out the offer to come on, your platform, which means he accepts the whatever happens on the platform in terms of the way that you set the agenda.
He just didn't like answering the questions because, and fine, I accept that I can be, when I get like all excited and frustrated, I interrupt too much. So that's fine. There are certain parts of, like, when I did watch when we were cutting up the clips that we want to use after, there are certain interruptions that I made, a lot of interruptions in fact that I made that I support. I stand by him because he was just trying to pivot to something else and go totally off subject, and I'm like, I knew we were limited in time, so I don't want to talk about some weird Russian pogroms to try somehow underhandedly delegitimize Israel's right to have formed. Like, whatever, that doesn't matter. We're here now. Hamas wasn't there either then, So to me, those interjections were fine. But, then there was ones where I was just like, I was so over his shtick that I was like...
But I should have stepped in here and there to control you, for sure. Next time I will be. I'm going to be more heavy-handed. So unless the Mossad increases my payments, we can... the next debate will not be so easy for you, Avi.
What do you reckon? Babette's accepting the debate or what?
I don't know, mate. I don't know.
Read the super chat.
Let's go. Sunnyside First Fleet, thanks for super chat. Disagree, Rukshan. AI going to dehumanize and kill creativity and originality without copyright. Why originate something new only to be data drilled? Look, as a creative and someone that works in the creative field, I totally get that perspective and I understand that. But I think, But
on the flip side, actually, when you're creative, yeah, that's true. But also on the flip side, like, even in what we do, it means you can do it better. It means, I can bounce ideas, like, thoughts and how to articulate, like how to put a thought together properly. So, like, you can tell when somebody just asks AI, give me a comment to counter this argument. And you can see it in the comment that it's just AI. But if you're using it for research, for example, it's a really strong tool. And so I think,
No, I think what Sunnyside's saying is protecting intellectual property, and I agree. Like,
yes,
we do
that's
have
true.
to protect people's. We
100%.
have to find ways to protect people's.
Unless it's a
intellectual property,
streamer
their
from New
artwork.
South Wales, then screwing.
Yeah, but I think some of the worries, for instance, that I've kind of heard floated around is like, for instance, you feed into this AI model, indigenous artworks, for instance, and all of a sudden, that indigenous artwork then can be recreated by AI models, for instance. But you can go ahead and train AI models to do that anyway. It's more about giving it access to this wealth and knowledge of Australian information that I think would give a more Australianized version of AI, perhaps in our country. That if you want to research Australian history or something like this, or research Australian literary works, things like this, I think it can have its advantages. But yeah, maybe I'm just thinking. Maybe I'm just too much of a supporter of AI right now, and I don't see the future implications of it. I actually love a lot of aspects of the technology, and I don't even mind in terms of if the AI can actually do it better for certain tasks. Sometimes a computer perhaps may be better, and we have to take advantage of that technology. So I come from that worldview, so that's what informs me.
You know what I realized is when we were asking what POQ was, my wife texted me, piss off quietly. I don't know how she knows that, to be fair. But
I have a feeling I know why she knows that.
I bet you John would have loved to know that. But I've got to tell her to stop giving me answers when we're trying to get super chats to answer the questions, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
It's because my wife's not Jewish. She doesn't understand. All right, I reckon tonight we wrap it up nice and early. Thank you to everyone tuning in tonight. Make sure on the way out you smash the like button, help the algorithm. Share the feed if you enjoyed it. If you think it's going to service anyone, I know tonight was a bit of a quieter one. We've had some big shows recently, so it was okay to have a one with not that much news happening. But make sure subscribe to the channel you're watching this on now. Hit the notification bell. Go to Roxanne's X. Give him a like. He's over 100,000 followers now, so he's slowly catching up. The Mossad pays. I can see it's going somewhere good. But otherwise, we'll see you again on Tuesday night.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night. Take care, everyone.